The Sixth Key by Adriana Koulias, a reading. Chapter 2, In the Belly of the Dragon. Quote, But the good champion Ethelred, now entering within the door, was sore enraged and amazed to perceive no signal of the merciful hermit, but instead thereof, a dragon of a scaly and prodigious demeanour. Edgar Allan Poe, The Fall of the House of Usher. Berlin, 1938. A long corridor led to an elegantly furnished room overlooking the street. At the threshold to this room, a peculiar calmness came over Otto Rahn. He could have screwed up the telegram or even refrained from knocking on that door, but he hadn't, and now he had to surrender to the moment, for good or ill. In a chair by the window sat a man dressed in full uniform, black hat with a death's head emblem, long black leather boots, shining buttons, sigroons, swastikas, the whole regalia of the SS. His face turned only slightly, and he looked at his visitor with those small, myopic eyes, ensconced behind pince-nez. To Rahn he looked like an accountant, someone who, at another time, might have lived an inconsequential life, perhaps as a disliked but tolerated clerk, a civil servant with shabby domestic cares. Rahn could see him riding a bus to work, thinking about money or illness, shuffling through his life unperturbed by the great problems of fate and goodness. But destiny had dealt him different cards, and here he was. When the man smiled, white, thinly spread and shrewd, it caused a tremor to pass over his left cheek. He blinked and blinked again, adjusting his lenses. Rahn realized he must do something, so he stiffened his back and raised his right hand in what to him felt like a rather comical version of Hitler's salute. The other man didn't stand. He gave an effeminate little wave and said, "Heil Hitler." Rahn waited while the seated man stared, with an expression much like that of the mouse that has tricked the cat in those American cartoons. He almost expected the man to say boo and heartily laugh, but he didn't. Instead he looked Rahn over, scanning him from head to toe, no doubt ticking off a mental checklist of features that displayed the Aryan ideal: green-grey eyes, smooth hair, fair skin, tall with good bones, not terribly athletic, but nothing that a good stint in training couldn't cure. When he spoke, his voice sounded small, as if it were coming from inside a radio speaker. "Otto Rahn, delighted to meet you at last. Will you take a seat? I did wonder if you would answer my mysterious telegram. Sorry about that. Couldn't be helped, I'm afraid. Correspondence in and out of Germany has to be considered carefully these days. One never knows who's listening in. Still, I had a feeling you would come. And here you are. Tell me, are you astonished? It isn't every day you find the Reichsführer waiting in an apartment to greet you." Rahn faltered. To say he wasn't surprised might seem to be acknowledging some form of guilt. On the other hand, to say that he was surprised might sound as though such a thing as Heinrich Himmler coming to meet a man in an apartment in Berlin was altogether ludicrous. So he said nothing. He simply returned the smile and sat down. It was an impossible situation. Beyond his fear and awkwardness, he began to speak, but Himmler interrupted him with a raised hand. "There's no need. Your anxiety is perfectly understandable. Many people feel sick when they see this black tunic," he said. "But this is the desired effect, you see. Our aim is to be as much feared by the criminal as we are regarded by the German citizen as a trusted friend and helper." With immense effort, Rahn answered, "Of course, in truth, Germany has never felt a safer place." "Correct." Himmler gazed at him, his eyes laconic and expressionless, and his features stagnant. For a moment the only sound Rahn heard was the passing of a streetcar below. This situation was far outside his experience, and he hadn't the slightest idea what to do next. He had a terrible desire to let go a nervous laugh, but he coughed politely into his hand instead. "Let's get to the point, shall we?" Himmler reached for a book on the table. It was a German copy of Crusade Against the Grail, Rahn's book. The Reichsfuhrer leafed through it for quite a time, pausing now and again to read something before speaking. When you wrote this, you brought yourself to the attention of the Führer. The Führer is very attentive, always on the lookout. If I have offended... The man laughed a small, clipped laugh. Are you listening to this, Wolfgang? He called to his bodyguard. Our author believes he is going to Dachau. The guard nodded as if such a thought did not go beyond the realm of possibility. Well, I shall let you in on a secret. You are off the hook, as the Americans say. Rahn felt a sneeze coming on, which he tried to suppress. No, our Führer agrees with me that your work is erudite and Aryan to the highest degree, an example of the German creative spirit and an inspiration for our men. In actuality, he believes you are closely connected to the Reich through your destiny. Rahn didn't know what to say to this, nor indeed if anything was required of him, so he said nothing. You are not only an expert on history, Rahn, but you also have a good working knowledge of the occult, something we regard highly. In fact, we believe that many lives have prepared you precisely for the moment when you could offer your gifts to the Reich. And I am here to tell you, personally, the moment has arrived. Himmler stood as if to underline this, and Rahn followed. Himmler was tall, with long legs and arms and a short body marked by a pot belly. Everything about him seemed immaturely made and awkward, as if the bones had grown faster than the muscles that supported them. One could imagine Himmler as a boy, being made fun of by his peers for running into desks and tripping over carpets because he couldn't see where he was going. What is your next book? He said, breaking into Rahn's thoughts. I'm writing about the siege of the Cathar castle at Montsegur and comparing it to the crucifixion at Golgotha, he said. Himmler went to the window. Well, you must forget that. The Führer would like you to write 2 books, which you will produce over the space of 2 years. He is interested in the lineage of the Grail and how it is linked to the Aryan peoples. He is also impressed by your ideas on the Cathars and your knowledge of mythology. He turned around again to face Rahn with an impassive expression. The niceties were over. You will receive a handsome advance and ample freedom to do what research you need. We might even send you back to France, or to the north, to Scandinavia. In a few days, you will be given an office at headquarters, and you will meet your superiors. Until then, I would suggest you sort out your affairs and prepare yourself for the tasks ahead. In time, you will be accepted into the SS, but for now, you can consider yourself a provisional member. No need to thank me. I know what an honor it is. He looked about him, his eyes quite far away. I sense you will accomplish great things, Otto Rahn. I trust you will not disappoint me. He looked at Rahn penetratingly for a moment before saying, Heil Hitler! And walked out then, snapping his heels on the polished wood floor.